Hi, so this is a video tutorial that is based on a workshop that was happening on October 9, helping you with your final project in your QR 1190 course. My name is Melanie Lorek. I'm a QR Fellow at New York City Tech this year. So let's start with your assignment, right? The first part of your assignment that you received from Professor Corley was to find an article in a magazine or newspaper involving cancer, which makes a claim and uses statistics to support this claim, and data did not need to be given in the article. Okay, you all did this, and watching this tutorial, you should have your article in front of you in order to be able to refer to it. Okay, so then the next stage of your assignment is explain what the data from which the statistics presented must look like, and give an example of possible data set that's small and represent this data set graphically. So for the next few minutes, we are just going over this part here that's highlighted in blue. Explain what the data from which the statistics presented must look like. So there are a few steps involved, and I tried to break the assignment down into very small steps, so it should be easy to follow. All right, so I picked an example that doesn't use cancer, but it uses obesity instead, which, it's not that far. And my example is from healthday.com. If you go to the lecture slides, you can just click on it, and your example probably looks something like this here. So this is a quote from the article, and it says, "Many parents feed their babies in ways suspected of boosting the risk of obesity later in life. A new study finds researchers found that of nearly 900 parents of 2-month-olds, many reported at least one habit studies have linked to increased odds of childhood obesity, including putting their baby to sleep with a bottle, always trying to get their baby to finish the milk, or offering milk every time the baby cried. What's more, nearly half reported watching TV half of the time they fed their infant." All right, so far so good. So now, what do you have to do with this in order to be able to create data from this quote and then create a data set and represent those data graphically, right? So the first step is you should start extracting the most important information. So I highlighted what's most important in red here. So who are we talking about? We're talking about 900 parents that were asked of 2-month-old babies, right? Not just any parents, but only parents who had babies that were 2 months old. And those were asked for feeding habits of their babies, right? And the study asks what the link is between feeding habits and childhood obesity. And some of those parents said that they put their babies to sleep with a bottle, that they always tried to get their baby to finish the milk, that they offer milk every time the baby cried, and half reported watching TV half of the time they fed their infant. Those are the really crucial information. Who is being asked, what is the study about, and what are the results? Yeah, this is what you should look for when you look at your own article. Okay, so the next step is you should recreate the research question. In other words, you should ask yourself, well, what must the study have been about? What did they try to find out in the first place in the kind of broad, large picture, right? And so what I came up with in the case of the feeding habit study and the obesity study is, well, what kind of feeding habits of babies trigger obesity later in life, right? And here, since you're recreating the research question, you may not be able to come up with you probably will not be able to come up with the exact research question the researchers came up with, but that's not the point. The point is, based on the information the article gives you, extracting and coming up with a research question that covers what is presented in the newspaper article. That's the idea. All right, let's move on. The next step is an important one, and it asks you, to decide on the research design that is used in the study. There are two major research designs, and you will most likely only encounter the one on the left hand, the survey design. But sometimes there are experimental designs, and I just want you to know about them. Okay, so in a survey, participants are asked behavioral questions of based on a questionnaire. So that's the key, it's behavioral questions. For example, how many times have you suffered from a migraine within the last 3 weeks? Other questions are, how often do you smoke, right? Survey questions also demographic questions such as how old are you, what gender do you identify with, what race do you identify with. All those questions are survey questions. In an experiment, participants are assigned to an experimental group that receives a treatment and one, or it can be more, comparison groups, so-called control groups, that do not receive the treatment. So it's really this example of having a medication and a sugar pill, and one group gets the medication, the other group gets the sugar pill, right? And you try to find out, does that medication do anything? So an example would be 20 participants suffer from a migraine, and 10 participants receive a migraine medication, and 10 receive a placebo, a sugar pill, right? If you have a setting where the participants are in groups and there's a placebo and there's a treatment, that might be an experiment. But most likely you will encounter survey questions. All right, so after you decided on what the research question was, or must have been, the study has used in the first place, you should decide what research design has been used in this study. So now let's just use this example here to kind of strengthen your skills a little bit. So many parents feed their babies in ways suspected of boosting the risk of obesity later in life, right? That's the example I just gave you. A new study finds. Researchers found that of nearly 900 parents of 2-month-olds, many reported at least one habit studies have linked to increased odds of childhood obesity, including putting their baby to sleep with a bottle, always trying to get their baby to finish the milk, or offering milk every time the baby cried. What's more, nearly half reported watching TV half of the time they fed their infant. So what kind of research design was used, you think? Survey design. It is survey design. That might not be very visible here, but it's a survey design based study. And the giveaway should have been reported watching. They're reporting, right, on a behavior. That's what survey design mostly does, what survey questionnaires do. All right, let's go to a different example. Here, a study quoted that says researchers placed 304 overweight teens from Ottawa region into 4 different groups. The first group was selected to perform resistance training with weight machines and free weights. The second group performed aerobic exercise on treadmills, elliptical machines, and stationary bikes. The third group did both resistance training and aerobic exercise, and the fourth control group didn't do any exercise. The group that performed both aerobic exercise plus strength training saw an average decrease in their body fat of 1.4% compared to the group that did aerobic training with 1.1% and the group that did resistance training with 1.6%. So that would be an experiment, exactly. It would be an experiment because the participants are placed into 4 different groups and different treatments. In that case, a treatment is exercise is put on them. The placebo then, or the sugar pill is the no exercise, right? That's how it works here. Okay, so after you decided on your research design, the next question you want to ask yourself is, what's the study sample? So that looks a little odd here. I'm just going to go out of here. I'm sorry, I cannot tolerate this, but I can talk while I do this. So most of you probably already heard what a sample is. And a sample is a subset of a population. A population, also called a target group, is the group you're interested in studying. A subset of this population then usually represents the population. We don't really have to go into representative sampling right now, but important is that population doesn't necessarily mean the entire United States, the entire planet. It can mean all people with cancer, all people that are obese. Any population you want to study, and since it's not really possible to study everyone who's obese, everyone on this planet who has cancer, you will have to pick, right? So you study 1,000 people of cancer, 1,000 people who are obese. That's the idea of a sample, a subset of the population you want to study. All right, so going back to your article, just think about what would have been the population, the target group of that study. Yeah, everyone has cancer, everyone has obese, women who are obese, it really depends. And then what are the people they may have actually looked at? So those are the two questions you want to ask yourself, and may want to write them down. All right, moving on. Let's just quickly go back to the example 1 and just reminding yourself, what is the sample of this study? What do you think? Yes, parents of babies, right? It says parents of 2-month-old. That is the population of this study. So now what's the subset of that population of the sample that was used? Yeah, 900 parents of 2-month-old babies. They looked at 900 parents with 2-month-old babies for this study. That's the sample out of the population, which was parents with babies. Okay, so again, just to remind yourself of that example, now the next step is you have to recreate survey questions, also referred to as variables. So I'm going to go back one more time, and if you look at all those different results here, right, you say in at least one habit was reported, which was including putting their baby to sleep with a bottle, always trying to get the baby to finish the milk, offering milk every time the baby cried, and half reported watching TV half the time they fed their infant. So now you have to ask yourself, what is it? How did they actually find those things out? Well, in a survey, they asked the people. That's what they did, right? So in step 5, you want to recreate so-called survey questions. Question 1 then would be, when feeding your baby, how often do you do any of the following things? Putting your baby to sleep with a bottle of milk, right? Remember, right? Putting the baby to sleep with a bottle of milk. I put that in there. I just copied and pasted it, basically. And the response options would be always, sometimes, occasionally, rarely, never. So those response options here kind of maybe remind me of the student evaluations you have to fill out at the end of each course. So there should be symmetrical. So if you have an always, you have to have a never. If you have a sometimes, you have to have a rarely, and often there's one in the middle, occasionally, for people who are like on the fence. And you put down those response options, and then you will have to number those response options. That will become important later on when we start to run computations. Okay, so then going back to the example, right, they also reported always trying to get the baby to finish the milk. Well, then one of the questions probably was, when feeding your baby, how often do you do any of the following? Try to get your baby to finish the milk. Always, sometimes, occasionally, rarely, never. And you just continue doing this with every result that is being reported. That's what you do. Okay, so in the next tutorial, I will talk about the next stage of your assignment, which is give an example of possible data set, and give a small data set and create mock data. All right, hope that was helpful, and see you soon. Bye.